The laugh came first, not cruel, not loud, just one soft breath from somewhere in the crowd. Then another. Bruce Lee stood beside a regulation arm wrestling table, while a woman twice his size rolled her shoulders and flexed her fingers. Cameras lifted, spectators leaned forward. Someone whispered his name. Someone else whispered her weight, 250 pounds. She did not sneer, she did not boast, she simply looked at him, then at his forearm, then back at his face. "You are sure?" she asked quietly. Bruce did not answer right away. He placed his palm on the table, closed his eyes for one slow breath, then opened them. The room changed. No one expected what happened next. Not the crowd, not the referee, not even the woman who thought this would be over in seconds. And when the wood finally cracked, it was not victory that broke it. It was something far more unsettling. The laughter returned as Bruce sat down, softer this time, like people were embarrassed they had made it at all. The woman across from him adjusted her elbow on the pad with practiced precision. Her forearm was thick, veined, steady. When she rolled her wrist once, the movement looked effortless, like a door closing. Bruce placed his elbow down as if he was setting something fragile. He did not stretch. He did not shake out his arm. He simply rested his hand near the center line and waited. The referee stepped in, eyes moving between their faces. His voice lowered without meaning to. "Grip up." Their hands met. For one small second, her fingers wrapped fully around his, and the crowd reacted without speaking. A shift of weight, a single intake of breath. Someone near the front leaned forward so far their chair legs scraped the floor. The woman looked at Bruce's wrist. Then she looked at his eyes. "You are sure?" she asked again. Not as a threat, but as a final offer to step away with dignity. Bruce did not rush to answer. He let the question hang there while the arena filled the silence for him. Camera shutters clicked. A commentator murmured something to a colleague. A few people smiled, already imagining the photo of a champion pinning a movie star. Bruce inhaled through his nose, slow and controlled. His shoulders stayed loose. His gaze stayed gentle. Then he nodded once. Nothing dramatic, nothing proud, just a simple decision. The referee adjusted their grip, pressing their knuckles into position. No lifting the elbow. Ready. The woman set her shoulder. It was the kind of movement that came from years of winning, a confidence built into the body. She was not angry, she was focused. Yet under that focus was something else. An old fatigue, the kind that comes from constantly being tested by strangers who want to prove something at your expense. "Go." The referee's hand dropped. Her force arrived immediately. Not wild, not reckless, measured, professional. The crowd expected Bruce's hand to fold at once. Instead, his wrist held. His forearm tightened like a cable. His feet stayed planted. His face stayed still. A murmur spread. She increased pressure, eyes narrowing in concentration. Bruce's hand moved only a few degrees. His jaw remained relaxed, as if he had decided that even losing would not be allowed to disturb him. The table gave a small creak. The referee glanced down sharply. Bruce heard it too. He did not look at the table. He looked at her, and for the first time she hesitated. Not because she was afraid of him, but because she realized he was not here to be a spectacle. He was here to meet her strength without trying to humiliate it. And that realization, in front of everyone, made her tighten her grip even more. The creaking grew louder. The room leaned in. Something was about to break, yet no one could tell what. The noise in the arena faded into something distant, like Bruce was hearing it through water. He kept his breathing slow, not because he was calm by accident, because he chose to be. The referee shifted his stance, scanning their elbows, their wrists, the line between their hands. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. He did not want to interrupt whatever was forming in front of him. Around them, people rose from folding chairs. Someone climbed onto a bench for a better angle. A photographer moved closer, lowering himself to get a shot from table height. The woman's forearm flexed again, muscles tightening in clean, practiced waves. She had learned to read opponents through their hands, through tiny changes in pressure, but Bruce gave her nothing familiar. His resistance did not feel like muscle. It felt like structure. She adjusted her footing, drew her hips closer to the table. Her shoulder rotated inward a fraction. Bruce mirrored the shift without thinking. His body stayed connected from heel to spine, from spine to fingertips, not rigid, integrated. He did not push back directly. He let her force travel into him, then down through his legs into the floor. The crowd could not see any of this. They only saw that he was still there. A man near the front whispered, "He is not moving." Another voice answered, "He should already be done." The woman increased pressure again. Bruce's wrist bent slightly. His arm followed a few inches. His elbow stayed planted. The movement was small, but it changed the room. People leaned forward at once. Someone covered their mouth. The referee raised one hand halfway, ready to stop the match if Bruce's arm dipped too far. She noticed the shift in his position and mistook it for weakness. Her jaw tightened. She committed more weight. Her breath came out through her nose in a sharp burst. The table legs vibrated against the concrete floor. A low sound passed through the wood like something inside it waking up. Bruce felt the surge move through her frame. He did not resist it head-on. He let it pass. His shoulder dropped a fraction. His wrist rotated a few degrees inward. His hips softened and then settled again. It was not something taught in arm wrestling. It was something learned from years of listening to force instead of arguing with it. For a moment, their hands stopped moving entirely. Frozen, two bodies locked in public stillness. The crowd went quiet without being asked. In that silence, Bruce looked at her face. She was no longer thinking about cameras or champions or movie stars. She was thinking about why this smaller man was not breaking. Her eyes flicked to his breathing, slow, even. That was when uncertainty entered her strength. Not doubt, curiosity. And curiosity made her hesitate. Bruce felt it immediately. He did not capitalize on it. He simply held the space. The table creaked again, louder this time. The referee stepped closer. The woman leaned in, preparing to finish. Bruce closed his eyes for one brief second. When he opened them, his body had already made its choice. She had learned long ago not to underestimate quiet opponents. But this was different. Most challengers tried to overpower her early. They exploded with effort, burned their strength in the first few seconds, then collapsed into defeat. Bruce did neither. His presence felt steady, like he had arrived already balanced. Her fingers tightened around his hand. She increased pressure to a level she usually reserved for finals. Her shoulder drove forward. Her back engaged. The muscles along her arm hardened like rope. Bruce's wrist dipped another inch. The crowd reacted instantly. A collective inhale swept through the front rows. Someone behind the camera muttered, "There it is." But Bruce did not panic. He adjusted his stance by half a step. His heel pressed deeper into the floor. His hips aligned under his spine. The movement was almost invisible, but it changed how her force traveled through him. She felt it. Her power was no longer landing where she expected. It slid. Her brows drew together as she recalculated. She had defeated men heavier than Bruce with less effort than this. She had pinned arms thicker than his in seconds. Yet here he was, absorbing her like water, moving around stone. She pushed harder. Her breathing grew louder. Bruce's arm trembled now, but his eyes stayed soft. He was not staring at her hand. He was watching her shoulders, her balance, the way she leaned. He was not trying to win. He was listening. A bead of sweat ran down her temple. She shifted her grip, trying to gain leverage. Bruce allowed it. He followed the motion instead of fighting it, keeping his structure connected. The referee leaned closer, eyes darting between their wrists and the center line. "Careful," he said quietly. More to the table than to either of them. The wood answered with a strained groan. Bruce felt the vibration travel through his elbow pad and into his bones. He knew the equipment was reaching its limit. He also knew that if he continued to resist directly, something in his shoulder would give before she did. He had seconds to choose. He could keep defending, or he could change the direction of everything. She committed fully now. Her chest moved closer to the table. Her hips drove forward. This was her championship push, the kind she used when matches had gone longer than expected. Bruce felt the weight of her entire frame come through her arm. He did not meet it. He released. Not suddenly, precisely. His resistance melted away at the exact moment her force peaked. At the same time, he rotated his torso and shifted his center of gravity, guiding her momentum past his own structure instead of into it. Her eyes widened as the pressure she expected vanished. For a fraction of a second, she had nothing to push against. Then the table screamed. A sharp crack split the air. The oak surface fractured down the middle, the sound echoing off the arena walls like a gunshot. Both of them lurched forward as the table collapsed beneath their locked hands. Wood splintered. Metal legs folded. Bodies stumbled. The crowd froze. Bruce landed on one knee, still holding her hand. She caught herself on the broken edge, staring at the wreckage between them. No one spoke. Not yet. For 3 full seconds, the arena did not breathe. The broken table lay between them like a fallen bridge. Splintered oak pointed upward in jagged lines. One metal leg twitched before settling flat against the concrete. Bruce was the first to let go. He released her hand slowly, as if ending a handshake instead of a collision. Then he shifted his weight back onto both feet and straightened, checking his shoulder with a small, careful roll. The woman stayed frozen, eyes locked on the split, running through the wood. Her mouth opened, then closed. She touched the edge of the table with 2 fingers, pressing lightly, as if expecting it to move again. The referee stepped forward at last, his whistle still hanging untouched around his neck. He looked from Bruce to her, then down at the remains of the equipment, his lips parted, searching for a rule that did not exist. Matches stopped, he said quietly. No cheer followed. No boos. Just a low wave of murmurs moving through the crowd. Cameras flashed. Bruce bent down and lifted one half of the table, testing its weight, then set it back in place. He did not smile. He did not raise his arms. He simply studied the break with calm attention, tracing the fracture line with his eyes. The woman finally exhaled. She rubbed her forearm once, then flexed her fingers, checking sensation. Her coach appeared beside her, speaking urgently in her ear while inspecting her elbow. She nodded, still staring at Bruce. "I have arm wrestled for 12 years, she said, mostly to herself. "I have never seen this." Bruce heard her. He stepped closer, keeping a respectful distance. "I did not come to compete," he said softly. "I came to understand." She looked up at him then, really looked. Her expression was no longer guarded. The confidence was still there, but something else had entered alongside it. Recognition. Not of fame, of method. "You let go," she said. "Yes, you released on purpose." Bruce nodded. "You had more strength than me," he continued. "So I changed direction." Her shoulders dropped. The referee cleared his throat and raised his voice slightly. "Due to equipment failure, this match is declared null. No winner." The announcement felt small compared to what had just happened. People began talking all at once. Bruce stepped away from the table, giving space. His friend approached, touching his shoulder gently, asking without words if he was all right. Bruce nodded once. Across from him, the woman took 2 steps forward. She extended her hand again. Not as a challenge. As acknowledgement, Bruce accepted it. Their grip this time was lighter, human. "I assumed you were just a movie man," she said. "That was wrong." Bruce held her gaze. Strength arrives in many forms. She swallowed. Around them, the crowd slowly began to understand that something more than spectacle had occurred. And that understanding changed the energy in the room. They moved away from the wreckage together, guided by officials who were still arguing quietly about insurance forms and replacement equipment. Bruce walked with an easy pace, one hand resting briefly on his lower back before falling naturally to his side. He did not favor his shoulder. He did not seek attention. He simply stepped aside and let the noise of the arena pass through him. The woman followed a few feet behind. Her coach stayed close, still checking her arm, still asking questions. She answered with short nods, but her eyes kept returning to Bruce. They found a quiet corner near the loading entrance, away from cameras and crowd. A single folding chair sat against the wall. Bruce did not take it. He leaned lightly against the concrete instead. She approached him slowly. "I have beaten men heavier than you," she said. "They always fight me. They push until something gives." Bruce listened without interrupting. "You did not fight," she continued. "You disappeared." He tilted his head slightly. "I redirected," he said. She let out a small breath that sounded like relief. Her hand moved unconsciously to the place where the table had broken, muscle memory still searching for resistance. "I felt my power slide past you," she said, "like I was swinging into empty space." Bruce nodded. "You generate force from your arm and shoulder. That is honest strength. I generate from the ground, different paths." She studied his stance now, the way his feet were placed, the relaxed alignment of his spine. "You were not trying to beat me," she said. "No. Then why accept?" Bruce did not answer right away. A forklift rolled past behind them, its warning beep echoing down the corridor. Someone called out a name. Somewhere in the arena, applause broke out for another event. Bruce waited until the noise faded. I wanted to feel what you create, he said, and to see if I could meet it without harm. Her jaw tightened briefly. You could have been hurt. Yes. And you still sat down. Yes. She crossed her arms, absorbing that. Most challengers she faced were driven by ego. They wanted headlines. They wanted proof. Bruce had walked into her world without needing any of that. She exhaled slowly. I have trained for years to make people respect my strength, she said. Today you made me respect yours without trying. Bruce lowered his gaze. He accepted the words without ownership. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she extended her hand again. Bruce took it. No cameras this time. No crowd. Just two people acknowledging each other's discipline. Her grip was firm, but no longer competitive. When they released, Bruce gave a small bow of his head. She watched him walk away, and something inside her posture shifted. Bruce did not return to the crowd. He exited through a side hallway with his friend, moving past stacked chairs and equipment crates. The noise of the arena followed them for a few steps, then faded into a dull echo. Outside, the afternoon air felt cooler. Bruce paused near the concrete steps and rolled his shoulder once more, slow and controlled. His friend watched closely, ready to intervene, but Bruce gave a small nod to reassure him. I am fine. They stood quietly for a moment. Inside the arena, announcers were already filling the silence with new names and new events. The broken table was being carried away in pieces. Bruce did not look back. Across the building, the woman remained near the entrance, watching the doors where he had disappeared. Her coach spoke to her about ice packs and rest, about interviews waiting by the main stage. She nodded politely, but her attention was elsewhere. She replayed the moment in her mind. Not the crack, not the fall, the pause, the way he had closed his eyes, the way his strength had arrived without aggression. She flexed her fingers again. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar after a match. Not triumph, not frustration, perspective. She walked back toward the competition floor, slowly. Athletes passed her in warm-up jackets. A few recognized her and offered nods of respect. She returned them absent-mindedly. Later that evening, when reporters asked what had happened, she did not talk about physics or force. She said only, he did not try to overpower me. He showed me another way. They pressed for details. She shook her head. Some things did not belong to microphones. Bruce returned home without headlines. No celebration followed him. No victory speech. He cooked a simple meal. He stretched quietly. He made notes in a small notebook, sketching angles and foot placement, revisiting the way her weight had traveled through his frame. Not to relive the moment, to understand it. Days later, word of the broken table spread through training halls and gym basements. People debated what they thought they saw. Some exaggerated, some dismissed it. But the woman began changing how she trained. She added footwork drills. She studied balance. She practiced positioning instead of only power. Her matches became cleaner, more efficient. Bruce continued teaching his students that strength was not something you force, it was something you align. They never competed again. They did not become close friends. They shared one moment, one collision, and then they returned to their separate paths carrying something quiet with them. The arena eventually forgot. The table was replaced, but both of them remembered the silence. The arena lights dimmed long after Bruce had gone. Workers swept sawdust into small piles. The broken table was loaded onto a cart and rolled through a service hallway where no cameras followed. Another table took its place, clean and unscarred, ready for the next match. Most people moved on, but not everyone. The woman returned to her hotel that night with an ice pack on her elbow and questions in her mind. She lay awake longer than usual, replaying the moment Bruce had released his resistance. Not the crack of wood, not the stumble forward, the stillness before it. She had built her career on meeting force with force. It had carried her through years of challenges, through crowds that doubted her because she was a woman, through opponents who arrived angry or dismissive. Strength had been her language, but Bruce had answered her in silence. Weeks later, she stood in her training gym and tried something new. She adjusted her feet. She softened her shoulders. She paid attention to balance. Her coach noticed the change before she mentioned it. You are moving differently, he said. She nodded. Across the city, Bruce stood in front of a small group of students, demonstrating how power begins at the ground. He spoke quietly, guiding hands and hips into alignment, correcting posture with light touches. At one point, a student asked about the exhibition. Bruce paused. He did not tell the story. He only said, "She was very strong." That was all. The moment did not belong to the past. It lived in small ways. In how she approached the table in her next championship match. In how Bruce reminded his students to breathe before moving. In how both of them carried forward a deeper respect for forces they did not control. Years later, people would talk about the broken table. They would debate weight and leverage and physics. They would argue about who would have won, but the truth remained quieter. There had been no winner. There had been a meeting. Two different kinds of power had crossed paths in public, and instead of turning it into a contest of dominance, Bruce had chosen restraint. Instead of taking advantage, he had stepped aside, and in doing so, he left something behind that could not be measured. Not in pounds, not in trophies, not in headlines, just in the way one champion walked back into her gym with softer shoulders, and the way one martial artist went home and made notes instead of noise. The table was gone. The crowd dispersed, but the silence they shared in that moment stayed with them, not as memory, as direction.